How's it going, everybody? Kyle here. Today I picked out 5 games from the good old game collection. All these games are quite different from each other, but they each have something in common. We'll get into it, talk about each game. Hopefully you guys enjoy this one. Here we go. So if the title of the video didn't totally give away the premise, I think this first cover definitely will get the point across. We've got Blasto on the PS1 with this absolutely gorgeous foil front artwork featuring the titular character Blasto, voiced by the late great Phil Hartman in a, dare I say, a career-defining role. I think this was a match made in heaven. The character with the actor. Phil does such a great job with the material here. The writing is on point. There's a lot of fun one-liners.
Want a piece of this, bug eyes?
Joke lines.
Haven't seen this before.
Even like the incidental sounds and the screams and just all the little noises he does. Phil did an absolutely great job, and the synergy between him and the character is incredible. So it's very charming in that regard. This game was developed by Sony Interactive Studios of America before they became 989 Studios, and probably became more famous for working on the Twisted Metal sequels and Jet Moto 3 and games of that nature. This was released in 1998, and let me tell you, I probably would have bought this game in 98, seeing this on a store shelf. The hollow effect here is just awesome. I absolutely love it. But the game is probably notorious for being one of the hardest PS1 games, at least that I've played, and I can't be alone because you go on the Wikipedia page and it says this game is known for its brutal difficulty, and the fact that most players didn't get that far. I have to say, I have finished it. It is probably one of my proudest gaming accomplishments. First of all, the game plays like a mix between a 3D platformer, action-adventure game, and shooter, which doesn't sound crazy, but this is an early example, so there's a little bit of tankiness when it comes to the controls. Obviously, things aren't going to be nearly as smooth as, say, a 6th-gen game that tries the similar kind of gameplay mechanics. This game is also quite difficult, really due to the level design. There are limited continues and lives that you have to contend with, and also the fact that many enemies tend to just spawn out of thin air, and you kind of just have to be ready at all times. It is definitely a challenge. Despite that, I will say I do think it is worth playing. I don't know if I could necessarily recommend everybody go out and try to finish it, because it is quite tough and you'll spend quite a few hours, I know I did, getting through this whole experience. But I do think, regardless of whether you intend to finish it or not, it is worth experiencing. I think if you like this era of early 3D video games, it's definitely worth at least checking out. Not only that, you get a nice, great foil cover out of it too. So a win's a win, you know? All right, and next up we have a OG Xbox game, actually. We're going in alphabetical order for this one. We have Enter the Matrix, which came out in 2003. I believe to coincide with the Matrix Reloaded. It came out the same month. This was developed by Shiny Entertainment, which is pretty ironic considering we got this nice shiny artwork for the front with the symbols getting a cool holographic treatment. Also extends to the back of the case as well, which is pretty cool. You don't often see that. Also cool is the fact that this is a reissue. I've got the Platinum Hits version, which you don't normally see this kind of treatment in a Greatest Hits, Platinum Hits, Player's Choice, you know, what have you, kind of reissue. Usually it's just like the black label version gets the cool artwork and then they drop it. This is definitely not a great game. It's an interesting game, but it's not a great game. There's a lot of flaws. It does have a lot of interesting gameplay ideas, but unfortunately just a lot of it doesn't necessarily hit the mark. The driving in particular, there's a couple driving sequences in this game. This might have some of the worst driving mechanics of just about any game that attempts racing that I've personally ever seen. You compare it to like the Bond games of this era, and the driving in those games just absolutely trounces it. I don't know what happened here. I would say it might be worth checking out, especially if you're a big fan of The Matrix. It's not an absolute dumpster fire, but definitely don't expect a great gameplay experience out of this. It does have 2 characters that it features. You can play through the game as both, and apparently the story does change depending on the character. I think this might be a pass for anybody that isn't a huge Matrix fan, because I think really the best part of this game is the story and the writing and the directing from the Wachowski siblings. I think the gameplay definitely is not a high watermark for the 6th gen. It does have a nice foil cover, so you at least got that going for you, right? And next up, I'm gonna be sneaking in a bit of a more modern game in here. We got a PS4 game with Infamous Second Son. Now, this cover is kind of understated. It doesn't have like the usual like holographic rainbow kind of foil, but it just has a nice silver foil in the skyline as well as the street. And you've got Delzin, and his conduit power also gets a little bit of a foil treatment in the orange here. It is very nice. It's really tastefully done. It's pretty understated. This actually was my first experience with the Infamous series. I didn't have a PS3 growing up, so I did not get to play the first couple Infamous games. I booted this one up for a stream for a couple hours one night just to try out the series, see what I was missing. But I figured we'd throw this in because, you know, it's a more modern game that's got a bit of a nice foil artwork going. I feel like you don't see this kind of sales tactic too much nowadays, especially with the fact that things have moved so digitally focused, and getting physicals is kind of out of the norm nowadays, especially with games like Alan Wake 2 and stuff, like not even getting a physical at all. You don't see a lot of this special treatment too often anymore outside of maybe some indie small label releases that go all out. Here's a more modern example of a foil cover. All right, jumping back a couple gens now, probably to one of my favorite foil covers that I've seen and that I own. We've got the PS2 version of Space Race with this just absolutely gorgeous holographic rainbow foil on the silver here. Not only do you get it just super loud and proud on the front, but also the spine where the logo is also got that rainbow silver holographic sheen to it, which is awesome on the shelf. I really like this game a lot. In fact, I've streamed it multiple times. I've beat the game at least twice on stream. It is a kart racer, one of my favorite genres. This was originally released on the Dreamcast as Looney Tunes Space Race. For some reason, they dropped the Looney Tunes name for this release. They just called it Space Race. I guess they figured the Looney Tunes characters were visible enough. You knew who they were. It is the same game for all intents and purposes, all the same content, but it's excellent. It's really good. I think this is probably one of the most underrated kart racers, dare I say, and I've played a lot of them, so I don't say that lightly. I think this game is excellent. I think if you're into the kart racing genre at all, you know, you've played the Mario Karts, you've played the CTRs. If you haven't played this one and you love the genre, this to me is personally a must play. Lots of content. Honestly, the championship mode in this is like a 3-hour experience. Like it's pretty hefty for a single player championship. Tons of wacky items, plays really great. The handling and the mechanics in this are just really well done. I think this is all around a kart racer worth owning for the game and just the amazing cover art. I just have to gush about this one. Space Race on the PS2 is worth picking up. And to round out our list today, we've got kind of an interesting one. Another greatest hits. We've got Tetris Plus on the PS1. I say interesting because unlike Enter the Matrix, which got the foil treatment regardless of the version you bought, this is actually a case where the original Black Label release actually has completely different front artwork, and the foiling was added for the greatest hits release. This nice gold foil stamped Tetris Plus logo look was nowhere to be seen on the original release. So it's really cool that they went the extra mile for what is really a budget reissue of a game. It's a really nice touch, and I'm glad to have this version, despite the fact that it's got the nasty PS1 neon green and red greatest hits branding on it. Otherwise, I think it looks really nice. Gameplay wise, this is pretty much the Tetris you know and love, plus a little bit. You get an extra game mode. It's a puzzle game mode that actually features the little archaeologist guy on the front cover, and your goal in that mode is to rescue him from impending doom. Actually, they have like spikes that come down from the top of the screen, and the longer you play, the spikes get closer and closer, and your goal is to clear all the Tetris lines to get him to safety. It's kind of a fun twist on an otherwise tried and true formula. It's a nice change up if you get a little sick of the standard arcade mode. You get a couple of different ways of playing, which I think is really neat. This is a really good one to pick up, and it's really the only Tetris game on PS1 you need. And you also get this awesome gold foil. How can you go wrong, right? And with that, y'all, that will do it for us for today's list. Before I go, though, I do want to open up a dialogue in the comments. I want to hear what you guys got in terms of foil covers, holographic covers. Heck, maybe even got some cool lenticular covers. We didn't get to cover any of those today, but I would like to in the future. Let me know in the comments below what you guys got, and let's just reminisce about frankly, a bygone era in gaming, right? We still get physical games. I got PS5 games behind me, as you can tell, but it's different nowadays. Really, most games are being bought online. You know, there isn't much of a incentive to really make a cover art pop the way they used to back when you had to go into the store and buy a game based off the cover art and take it home just hoping, you know, it was a great game. There's something to be said for that. So with that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and see y'all next time.